Welcome back. We are continuing our series of interviewing and having a conversation with all of the 2022 to 2024 officers for the Libertarian Party of Texas. And this evening, I am delighted to bring on our new secretary, Ms. Anastasia Wilford. Anastasia, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I am doing very well. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on and have a quick conversation with me. And
It's my pleasure.
hopefully this can be a little bit of fun. We can get to know you a little better. We were discussing beforehand that we've kind of crossed paths in our libertarian story here, and hopefully it's as enlightening for people who watch this as it will be for me getting to know you just a little bit better.
Awesome.
So again, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
So I want to just start off with the general icebreaker that I've kind of asked everybody that I've talked to so far, and for me, this is a good question to just get people thinking or to see how they think about handling what seems to be insurmountable or difficult tasks. And if you were to open your email inbox tomorrow morning, and there were 10,000 emails in there, how would you tackle going through those emails?
So I've done this, maybe not 10,000, but I actually did have to sort through almost 3,000 emails the other day. And the way that I go about it, the couple of times I've had to do it is I will see something, like I'll scroll through a bunch and see what I'm seeing repeated several times. And then I'll do a search for it and I'll handle all of those together. Whether that means deleting them, archiving them, sorting through what's what. And then kind of do that for as many things as I can, pare down everything that I can delete. Cause like the one I'm assuming in 10,000 emails, a lot of it's junk. But get rid of absolutely everything that that you can, in just kind of bulk order. And then from there should be able to see the things that actually need attention and see what you can see that is top priority. Get either, and I do this in all sorts of organizational stuff that I do, look at both what needs done the quickest or the soonest and what can get done the fastest. And so sometimes you may have 6 tasks that take 30 seconds each, but they aren't due for another 2 weeks. And so you can put those a little bit further down the list, but you've got 3 things that are going to take 6 hours each, and they're due in the next 3 days. You can even, one of the ways that I like to organize things is to kind of mentally trick myself into being motivated. So I might take those 6 things that are a little further down in my priority list and bump them up to the top, get them done. And then all of a sudden I have the satisfaction of knowing I have knocked out 6 of the 19 tasks that I have to do. Sure. And it gives me this motivation to go, I'm a third of the way through. Let's knock this one out, the one that's due today out. And then let's knock out the one that's due tomorrow. And, stick smaller, easier tasks in between your big ones to maintain that motivation so you can get all the way through it.
So it sounds like you would just take a very practical approach and really, not delegate, but kind of figure out what takes priority and approach it from that standpoint. So I figured that was probably a completely off. Like, where the hell did that question come? So I appreciate you letting me warm up with you that way.
I love the creativity of that question, though, because it really gets into how a person thinks. And I'll say that, I think there are a lot of people who think very linearly. And so they may prioritize in one way and just start from the top and work their way down. For myself, I'm a creative, and I tend to think very abstractly and can see half a dozen different ways that things could be prioritized. That's one of the reasons that I actually like data-driven positions such as secretary, not just, taking minutes, but keeping records, analyzing data and that sort of thing, because there are 100 different ways that you can analyze election data. And with that, each different little thing that you do to it gets you another nugget of information that you can apply somewhere. So I think it was actually a really great question to get to understand somebody better.
I'm just glad you didn't say that you would sort them alphabetically and then eliminate all the ones that the subject starts with a vowel and, hey, getting rid of,
that sounds chaotic.
You're right.
A weird orderly chaos. That's weird.
So for you, this is a return to a leadership position. And while you were still around, obviously helping in the county and helping in some volunteer roles with the state, you took some well-deserved time off from active leadership. How would you say that time away was able to re-energize you and prepare you for this role as secretary for this term coming up?
So I'll be honest, I got a little burned out.
Yeah.
I was doing 50, 60 hours a week. And I was kind of in the weeds of a lot of stuff. And I love what the party stands for. I always have, even before I knew what a libertarian was. I believed in don't hurt people and don't take their stuff. And when I started to not look forward to doing the work that I was doing, I knew I needed to take a step back. One of the things I've told several people, and it's a little more brutally honest than I might have been in the past, is I was not good at setting boundaries, period. When something needed done and there wasn't somebody whose job it was to do it, I stepped up and I did it. Right. Because the party meant so much to me that I didn't want to see something not getting done that I could have done. The thing that I came to one of the many things that I came to realize in my time off is that even if the constitutional amendment recommendations don't get mailed out, the party's going to survive. Even if somebody gets elected county chair that maybe isn't your first choice, the party's going to survive. Yeah, we need to be doing absolutely everything that we possibly can. We need to be working toward doing more, getting more votes, gaining membership, affiliating more counties. But if the June newsletter doesn't go out, it sucks. But
the sky's not falling.
Exactly. And I very much had a sky's falling kind of attitude. And honestly, well, when I came in, the sky was falling. The sky was absolutely falling. We had just lost our only paid staff. Tons of stuff was not getting done. We didn't have a volunteer structure. Like the structure that you're a part of was developed the first year that I started volunteering with the party. And it took so much off of the officers' plates because that's who was doing all this work before. And since implementing the volunteer staff structure, the party has become so much more efficient. We've had people able to actually focus down and specialize in things and get really good at them. That was another reason that I took a step back, was I realized I had my hands in so much stuff that the party needed to grow beyond me. I actually believe that, particularly in volunteer organizations, it is not good for leadership to stay in the same place for a long time. Pat Dixon was chair for 10 years, and just like me, his heart and soul is in this party. But after 10 years of being chair, he could tell that it was time for him to step down, time to let the party grow beyond him. And I had to do the same. And I'm back now for two reasons. One, I don't know what to do without the party. I feel kind of guilty sometimes, especially when I see the news, see protests and riots and wars and all that stuff, knowing there's stuff that I could be doing that I'm not. I have to do something. If it wasn't going to be the party, it was going to be somewhere else. And this is where my heart is. I'm I'm a bureaucrat. I hate admitting that. I hate it so much.
Yeah, maybe we can edit that part out here.
I mean, it's who I am, though. Like, sure. I am a bureaucrat, and I like knowing the rules. I like knowing how to work around them. I like being able to navigate the nitty gritty, the ins and outs, all of that stuff. I've poured over election code so many times. I'm very nerdy about our election code. And I don't know, I love the party. I could have gone somewhere else, but this is honestly the best place for a bureaucrat. It's dealing with state agencies. It's dealing with election code. It's dealing with our state rules and Robert's Rules of Order. Like, this is where I belong.
And you touched on this when you first started talking about how the officers were taking on so many of the day-to-day activities of operating the party, and that we needed staff for that. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of state affiliates, they're not necessarily the size of LP Texas, for starters. Right. And so they're able to kind of manage it from a small executive committee, mm-hmm. And maybe a couple of officers doing the tasks that our 30-member staff team does. In a state affiliate this size, I think you recognize that the staff and the officers definitely have separate roles.
Oh yeah,
and that was the appropriate way to go forward. And I appreciate you being on the leading edge of making that work. So the role of secretary, which you'll be serving for the next 2 years, is obviously it's a vital role for any healthy organization, especially a political party where we have to meet certain criteria. We have to have timeliness of filings and stuff like that, and reports. Tell me a little bit about your personal experience that's prepared you for this role as secretary. And this is you've obviously won, so this isn't an interview question by any means. I'm just curious about your background that's prepared you for this.
So I've served as secretary in 3 different county parties. Cherokee, Anderson, and Denton, and also a local chapter of Normal for a while. So the minutes part of it, I've got down easy. Honestly, I usually have minutes done or very nearly done by the end of a meeting. An hour afterward, I've usually got them done. The difference here at the state level, I actually have some plans of reinstituting something that Arthur Thomas was doing whenever he was secretary. He had a document, and I forget what it was called, but basically it was a list chronologically of every motion that was made by the state executive committee during his term. That included not just meeting minutes, but also votes on the forum and stuff like that.
Sure.
And I really liked what he was doing there. I do plan on actually implementing a lot of the structure that he started. Every secretary has their way of doing things, but I liked the structure that he set up. So I'm going to be adopting it to fit my style a little bit, but it's largely going to be mirrored on what he's done. Otherwise, I'm just unreasonably organized. And like I said, I will cross-reference things half a dozen different ways. I want the data to be available. I want it to be stored, and I want it to be easily referenceable. And I do that at home already. I've done that in every job that I've had. I strive to make things more efficient, especially when it comes to data. And so, yeah, professional, personal, party. I do it everywhere.
And speaking of efficiency, a lot of times when there's a transition in the role of secretary, there can be some interruptions sometimes to the organization if that's not handled professionally and smoothly. If there's a rage quit or a firing or any sort of bad blood in the transition. Just briefly walk me through your relationship or any communication you've had over the last week or so, week and a half, with the outgoing secretary.
We've talked probably every other day or so. We've got a good relationship, both professionally and personally. And in fact, we were talking D&D the other day because I was in the middle, or I had just finished session 0 for a campaign I'm doing, and she was in the middle of her game.
We'll get to that.
Oh, okay. But we've already had a 3-hour phone call over like all of the systems that I need access to, where she's storing things and stuff like that. And she's gotten me access to everything that she can get me access to so far. Basically, all we're waiting to do is transfer ownership of the bank account, and I think she's going to be done. But
you would say it's a fairly smooth transition so far then?
Oh, absolutely. And I also trust that if there is anything that comes up that we realize didn't get transferred over, I mean, she's on select, so it's not like I won't be able to get in touch with her.
Sure. So the elephant in the room, pardon the pun, so to speak. So there's 2 Wilford secretaries. There's 2 Wilford secretaries now in the Libertarian Party. Mm-hmm. So how do you think that the sharing of ideas and procedures might add value to both the National Party and the state party? Or do you think there's any value to be had there?
So we've actually, we have discussed already different programs, some research that he had already done as far, I was looking for a program that would timestamp just what my minutes were without me having to do it. Just kind of automate that system. Apparently he'd already looked into it. And so we had a significant discussion about that. Otherwise, outside of the structure of taking minutes, Texas and National are vastly different entities. Sure. And I mean, the rules under which they operate, the size of the body, National has meetings constantly, whereas the state party pretty much does once a quarter. Every once in a while, we'll throw in a phone meeting or something like that. Right. But they are different monsters altogether. So I'm sure there will be a little bit of crossover, a little bit of, strategery as far as like, hey, how did this work for you? Yeah, this worked great. Don't do that though. But honestly, it's, I think, going to be pretty separate.
Okay. So I wanted to add a little bit of personal questions here towards the end as we wrap up. And I do appreciate you taking 20 minutes out of your evening to talk with me. And the question I came up with was pretty boring. It was that I know you're an avid painter, and that you're into dragons. That's kind of your thing. And I was trying to cross pollinate.
Where did you get that information?
I do my research.
Apparently, okay.
But I've got a more important question, and that is, I myself might be the only libertarian that's not a D&D player. Yeah. So your character, do people have more than one D&D character, or do you have like a single character? And if so, are you more of like a cleric or a druid or a barbarian? Like, what's your character when you play D&D?
Okay. So I currently have 3 characters. I say that, I guess one of them, the campaign is over. My 3 most recent characters, I had an an elf sorcerer. And that was fun. She was a wild this is going to be inside baseball, kind of. She was a wild magic sorcerer, which is basically like chaos magic. So that was a lot of fun. And there are a lot of roles that just determine random things about what your magic actually does. My other one, I have a Goblin Barbarian. She's a lot of fun. I actually built her specifically. She's what's called a Storm Herald Barbarian, and she's a high enough level at this point. I built her for speed and sleight of hand. She has a little feature where she can, by touching something, she can light it on fire. She can move 50 feet in 6 seconds, which is almost double what a normal character can move in the same time. And she has expertise in sleight of hand. So what I like to do with her is like set something on fire and then let that cause a commotion and pickpocket people and run away real fast. And then my favorite one, and the class that I play most often, is I have a Goblin Druid. And this is like the third Druid that I've played. The first Goblin Druid that I've played, I like goblins because they're little and they can get away from things really easily. But I like Druids because they're a mix of a tank and a healer. So for general gamers, those terms should apply, but they're not as good as clerics at healing, and they're not as good as barbarians or fighters at being a tank. But especially at early levels, they're really good at keeping a party alive, both by taking a whole bunch of damage and by being able to deal out a few heals. So honestly, I guess that's probably that embodies who I feel like I am in the party too. I'm a workhorse, and so that's the kind of tanky part. And I like staying in the background. It's gonna be I don't anticipate ever running for like state chair. I don't like to run for office. I don't believe that I'm a good public or candidate for public office, because I don't like being center stage, believe it or not. I like being in the background. I like making other people shine.
Awesome.
So,
well, listen, I appreciate you taking center stage today. Let me talk to you for a few minutes. I got a lesson in D&D that I was not expecting, and so I appreciate that. And hopefully the rest of the players that are watching this, that they understand what the hell you were talking about.
Yeah.
And if I ever decide to join up, I know who to call and get advice for what my character should be. So.
Well, referring back to your question about how Stephanie, the former secretary, and I are getting along as far as our transition goes, she and I have already been in talks about starting a Dnd Caucus. So
okay.
there is likely to be an outlet for the players in the party or the
that seems to be a
prospective players.
That seems to be a consistent theme now with our secretaries. Is they're board game fans and D&D fans. So
we had to do something to keep ourselves busy during the lockdowns.
Right. Well, Anastasia, congratulations on your win, and I look forward to working with you in the party for the next 2 years. And best of luck to you over the course of this term.
It's going to be fun. We'll see you around.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you. Have a good one.